It's strange how a person's patience has limits. You can forgive noise, you can ignore small annoyances, but when someone starts threatening your peace, something inside you changes. That's what happened to me. For 4 peaceful years, my daughter and I lived in a quiet little neighborhood, 2 small duplexes side by side. We lived in the first one, and life there was simple, calm, and quiet. Everyone minded their own business. Everyone respected each other, until last Christmas. That's when a new neighbor moved into the other half of our duplex. Her name was Vicky, around 60 years old with short gray hair and a tired look in her eyes. We didn't know much about her, but since it was the holidays, my daughter and I decided to welcome her. We made a small bag of Christmas puppy chow, a sweet Midwest treat, and walked over to say hello. She opened the door slowly. Her small terrier barked from behind her legs, nervous and jumpy. Vicky mumbled something hard to understand, but she smiled a little when we handed her the treat. I remember thinking, she seems shy, maybe lonely. We just wanted to start on a good note. We're big animal lovers. We have 2 dogs and a cat. We even feed another neighbor's cat who stays outside. So when we met Vicky's terrier, we thought maybe our dogs could be friends. Our old neighbors had 2 dogs, and our pets would play through the fence, sniffing and wagging their tails. But that changed very quickly. The first time Vicky's dog met ours through the fence, he went wild, growling, barking, snapping his teeth. Our dogs froze, unsure what to do. I thought maybe he was just scared of new surroundings, so I told myself it would get better. It didn't. Every day after that, her dog would run outside, barking nonstop. He didn't just bark. He charged at the fence like he wanted to attack. And when Vicky opened her front door, he'd run off completely. Into the courtyard, into the parking area, sometimes even toward the street. At first I tried to laugh it off. Maybe she was just having trouble training him. But soon it started happening every single day. One morning her dog darted across the driveway right in front of my car. That's when I decided to talk to her. I walked over and said kindly, "Hey Vicky, I'm a little worried your dog might get hurt. Could you please keep him on a leash?" She mumbled something, mostly nonsense, but I heard her say, "He chews through his leashes." I nodded, smiled, and thought that was that. But nothing changed. Days later, her dog was still running free, and I started to feel nervous every time I stepped outside. Once, when my daughter and I were walking to the mailbox, her dog came running at us, teeth showing, barking like crazy. We didn't even have our dogs with us that time. It scared my daughter so badly she froze. Then another neighbor's elderly mother came by to visit. Vicky's dog rushed at her too. The poor woman picked up a stick just to scare him away. That's when I realized this wasn't harmless anymore. This was dangerous. Still, I didn't want to be that angry neighbor. I wanted to solve it peacefully. So my daughter and I went to the store and bought a chain leash. We put it in a little gift bag with some treats and a note that said, "Please be careful with him for his safety and everyone else's." We left it by her door. But again, nothing changed. Her dog was still out, barking, lunging, chasing. And our own dogs? They just wanted to use the backyard. But every time we opened the door, the chaos began again. Her dog would bolt out, slam into the fence, snapping at ours while she stood by doing nothing. I tried to stay calm. I really did. But the day came when my patience finally snapped. One afternoon, our dogs and hers were barking through the fence. I was pulling mine back toward the door when I heard someone yell. It wasn't Vicky, it was one of her guests. The woman shouted loudly into Vicky's house, "You should call animal control." My blood boiled. I turned toward her and said, "Oh, you want me to call animal control?" "I will." My voice was shaking. I was angry, but also shocked. Here we were, the ones dealing with her dog every single day, and somehow we were being treated like the problem. When I came back inside, my daughter was anxious and near tears. She kept saying, "Mom, what if they blame our dogs? What if they take them?" I held her hand and told her, "No one's taking our dogs. We'll protect them. That's when we made a plan. We decided to start recording every incident. Every time that little terrier ran free. Every time he barked or charged. Every time she ignored the leash law. At first, it felt strange to hold up my phone and record. But after everything we'd tried, being nice, gifting her a leash, staying patient, this was the only way left to protect ourselves. Within a week, we had dozens of clips. Videos of the dog running loose with no leash in sight. Clips where she wasn't even outside. Her door wide open, her dog barking at our window. In some recordings, my dogs just watched quietly, and in others they barked back. But it was always her dog who started it. We didn't want to call animal control. We didn't want drama. But when someone threatens your peace, you can only stay quiet for so long. Then came the day things got worse. It was a quiet afternoon, and my daughter stepped outside again, phone in hand, recording as usual. Her dog was off leash again, running wild, and this time Vicky saw her recording. Through her window, Vicky muttered something, but it was too hard to understand. Then suddenly, a loud knock on our door. My daughter opened it, and there stood Vicky. Angry, trembling, her words messy and unclear. She asked why my daughter was recording her. My daughter stayed calm and said, "Yes, I was recording. Because your dog keeps running around off leash. We're not trying to get you in trouble. We just want to feel safe." Vicky sighed, leaned on the door frame, and started mumbling excuses. She said she was caring for her disabled sister, her elderly mother, and that her life was hard. She begged us not to call animal control. My daughter didn't argue. She just said softly, "We only asked for one thing, keep your dog on a leash." That moment was strange. Part of me felt sorry for her, but another part of me felt tired. Part of me thought maybe she finally understood. Maybe she was trying to change, but deep down I knew better. People like that don't just change overnight. One morning, my daughter stepped outside to take the trash. The cold air hit her face, and just as she reached the bin, that same sharp, angry barking exploded from next door. Her heart sank. She looked over the fence, and there it was. Vicky's terrier, running loose again, no leash, no control, charging at the fence and barking at everything that moved. My daughter sighed, pulled out her phone, and started recording. She wasn't doing it to be cruel. She was just tired. Tired of being scared in her own yard. But then, out of nowhere, the neighbor's front door slammed open. Vicky stepped out fast, her face red, her hands shaking. She yelled across the yard, her words slurred and hard to understand, but the anger was clear as day. She shouted, "Why are you filming me again?" My daughter stood her ground. She spoke in a calm voice, trying not to show fear. She said, "Because your dog keeps running around off leash, Vicky. It's not safe, for him or anyone else." But Vicky didn't want to hear it. She stormed closer to the fence, pointing, yelling, saying something about how we were spying on her, calling us crazy, and that we were the ones causing trouble. Inside, I heard the commotion and rushed out the door. I told my daughter to step back, and I faced Vicky myself. "Vicky," I said, trying to stay calm, "you're breaking the leash law every single day. Your dog could get hit by a car or attack another dog. We've tried to talk to you kindly. We even gave you a leash. What else can we do?" She shook her head, mumbling something like, "You people think you're perfect." Then she stormed off toward her house, slamming the door behind her so hard that the windows rattled. For a moment, I thought it was over, but I was wrong. A few minutes later, another voice joined the chaos. Louder, younger, and far more aggressive. It was her daughter, Ashley. She came storming across the yard, a woman in her 30s wearing slippers and a messy hoodie. Her voice carried across the whole duplex. "Why are you filming my mom?" she screamed. "You don't have the right to record her." I stood there, keeping my voice calm but firm. "She's breaking the law, Ashley. The dog's off leash again. We just want it to stop before someone gets hurt. But Ashley didn't care. She kept shouting and about how her mother was sick, how we were harassing her, how good neighbors don't record people. I could feel my heart pounding. I looked at my daughter, her hands trembling as she held her phone. This wasn't just about dogs anymore. This was about control, about intimidation. I stepped closer to the fence, and for the first time in this entire situation, I raised my voice. I said, "You have no idea how patient we've been. We've put up with months of barking, chasing, and your dog running wild. We've tried to be kind, and you've done nothing. So yes, we're recording, and yes, we'll call animal control if we have to." The look on Ashley's face changed. She didn't expect me to fight back. Her voice lowered just a little. Then she muttered, "You'll regret this," and walked away. The tension was thick in the air. Even my dogs were quiet now, sensing something heavy between us. I went back inside, sat on the couch, and for the first time in months I felt truly tired. Not just physically, but mentally. I thought about every time I'd tried to help. Every gentle word, every small act of kindness, and how it all turned into anger and conflict. Sometimes good intentions just aren't enough. I went back inside, sat on the couch, and for the first time in months, I felt truly tired. My daughter looked at me and said, "So what now, Mom? We just keep recording her forever?" I shook my head. "No, we're calling animal control, and we're calling the landlord." I suddenly remembered what another neighbor told me. Vicky had ghosted the landlord a while back, and had almost been evicted for not paying rent. I pulled out my phone and said, "I'm betting the landlord doesn't even know she has a dog, especially one that's a liability." The next morning I made the calls. First, animal control. I filed a full report. The daily off-leash violations, the aggressive charging, the threat from her guest. I emailed them the top 10 videos, including the one of the dog charging the elderly woman. They said they would send an officer out. Second, I called the landlord. I explained everything. The puppy chow welcome gift. The chain leash we bought her. The constant aggression. The recordings. And then I told him about Ashley and her fuck the law attitude. The landlord was quiet for a long time. Then he just said, "Thank you for this information. I will handle this immediately." 2 days later, I was washing dishes when I saw it. A white animal control van pulled up to Vicky's door. The officer knocked. Vicky came out, already starting in with her excuses about her hard life. The officer wasn't having it. He handed her a piece of paper. A citation, a fine for violating the city's leash laws. Vicky started to yell, but she stopped mid-sentence, because another car had just pulled up behind the van. It was the landlord. He walked right past the officer, right up to Vicky, who now looked pale. I couldn't hear everything, but I heard 3 sentences clearly. The landlord said, "Vicky, your lease has a no-pet policy unless approved in writing." He pointed to the dog. "That animal is not approved. You have 30 days to remove the dog, or you will be evicted." Vicky and Ashley, who had come outside, were completely silent. Ashley, the woman who screamed, "Fuck the law," just stared at the eviction notice and said nothing. The war was over. Since that day, the barking hasn't stopped. But the chaos has. Because sometimes when patience runs out, the law steps in. Vicky still lives next door, quieter than ever. And her dog? Always on a leash now. Maybe it wasn't revenge. Maybe it was just a lesson finally learned. If you've ever had a neighbor who thought the law didn't apply to them, hit that like button and subscribe for more Law and Order.